Perfect. So for everyone that's currently on the call, just a quick intro from me. I'm Megan and I work for LoyaltyLion in our customer success team. And I am just here to introduce Charlie, who is the CEO of Gecko Squared. So Gecko Squared is a Facebook and Instagram advertising agency specializing in working with high growth businesses globally in e-commerce, software and professional service companies. Charlie recently held a webinar for the internal LoyaltyLion team to give us a bit more info on the recent iOS 14 update and the effects this will have for our merchants. And we all found it incredibly insightful and super interesting and also a bit scary. So we asked if Charlie would come along and discuss this changes in a bit more detail with some of our merchants. So I'm soon going to be handing over to Charlie to kick off, but just so you know, we have scheduled time at the end for a Q&A. So if you've got any pressing questions or queries, just post them in the Q&A box at the bottom and we'll get to them. So over to you, Charlie, now. Go for it.
Excellent. Hey, everyone. Thank you all for joining us live. I'm going to share my screen and then I'm going to turn my camera off so we can all just focus on these lovely slides that I've created. Let me just full screen this. There we go. Okay. Right. So let's dive into the agenda. Obviously, you know what the session's called, iOS 14 changes, how to succeed with Facebook and Instagram advertising in 2021. Like if you didn't catch the slight intro just before this, I was basically saying this is such a huge change to Facebook and Instagram advertising, the biggest change since the Facebook Pixel was first released. And so it's, you know, to see success this year, you really have to understand, first of all, what this is, and then how to adjust your strategies accordingly. So onto the agenda. So we're going to look at what are the iOS 14 changes and why they are so important to Facebook and Instagram advertising. We're then going to move on to how to analyze the impact it will have on your advertising, looking at historic campaign data of yours. So that's an activity you can do in your ad account. We'll then dive into new advertising strategies for 2021, because yes, this has meant that we've had to adjust some of the strategies we implement for our own e-com agency clients. And then finally, we're going to look a bit of a bigger picture on why this is actually a good thing. And I'll run you through why I believe this is going to be a real pivotal moment, that if you can navigate this effectively, you can see the best results and outcompete a lot of your competition this year when it comes to your Facebook and Instagram advertising. So first of all, we're going to look at, what is the iOS 14 update? Then we're going to dive into why are the iOS 14 changes so important to Facebook and Instagram advertising. And then in this first part, we're going to look at why it will impact all advertisers, not just those with an iOS audience. So let's get into this. iOS 14, what is the update? So it's one of the biggest iOS updates to date, introduces home screen design changes, major new features, Siri improvements, everything from a front-end user perspective. But the bit that we're really concerned with as advertisers is the bit I've put in bold. So it's the updates for existing apps. And the iOS 14 change will affect essentially how Facebook receives and processes conversion events from the Facebook Pixel. So if you optimize, if you target, or if you report on web conversion events, such as page views, view content events, add to cart, initiate checkout, and purchases, this is going to affect you. And so in accordance with the new Apple transparency tracking program they've developed, Apple is going to require that all apps in the App Store show a prompt to users on iOS 14 devices. And this policy essentially is going to prohibit certain data collection and sharing unless people opt in to tracking on that iOS 14 device via that prompt that Apple are going to show when people load up Facebook and Instagram. And as more people opt out of tracking on iOS 14 devices, ad personalization and performance reporting is going to be limited for these web conversion events that we rely on so heavily when it comes to Facebook and Instagram advertising for e-commerce companies. So if you are a heavy Android audience, so if your business, you do your device analysis and you see, oh, most of our customers on Android, you may be thinking, I'm going to be safe. This only affects iOS changes. However, even though the change originated from iOS 14, Facebook are making global ads manager changes for absolutely everyone that go beyond just the iOS 14 impact. And there's two main changes here. So the first one is 8 event limit for optimization, including custom conversions. And then the second one is an attribution change, decreasing the visible data windows from a 28-day click to only a 7-day click, and from a 28-day view to only a 1-day view. And so overall, we're going to be looking at a likely negative impact to attribution and reporting. So there's going to be fewer conversions reported, optimization, so fewer events to optimize for from a campaign perspective. And then when people opt out of tracking, you're going to see smaller remarketing audiences because it's only going to send one of the 8 events. We'll talk about why that is and how that's going to work in just a second. And so there's this assumed result that your campaigns are going to be becoming less effective, essentially. So just before we dive into the kind of scenarios around the iOS 14 tracking prompt and the 8 events and things like that, this is just a new piece of info that was released this week from Facebook, and they're going to start rolling out a prompt before the Apple prompt in order to convince users to allow ad tracking. And this is in preparation for the springtime when Apple forces all apps in the App Store to show this tracking prompt. You can see an example of what the Apple one's going to look like just here. And then this is what Facebook is going to show before that loads. And it's really important looking at the language of the prompt that Facebook's created, because you can see here, they don't refer to it as tracking, they refer to it as website activity. And then those 2 bullet points. So it's basically, if you allow tracking, it's going to improve your ad experience. So you get more personalized ads. But the really important bit, and I was really surprised at this, the frame of reference they put on it is that if you allow tracking, you're actually supporting businesses that rely on ads to reach customers. And this is along the lines that Facebook's PR team have done, saying that this whole change from Apple is all like anti-small business because it's going to reduce data visibility and effectiveness, and it's going to make attribution a little bit harder. So directly from Facebook, this is from Facebook themselves, they basically said that Apple's new prompt is designed to present a false trade-off between personalized ads and privacy, when in fact they believe they can provide both. And they're doing this for self-preservation around their own services and targeted ad products. And essentially this new prompt that Facebook are introducing is designed to help people make a real choice and provide more information about how Facebook uses personalized ads. And in doing so, you're also supporting small businesses, and it keeps the apps free. So when someone clicks on either don't allow or allow in the Facebook prompt, it's then going to show them the actual Apple prompt that you can see appearing on screen in this screenshot here. And then it's going to ask them to kind of repeat what they just said. So either to track or not track. So now let's move on to the actual iOS tracking prompt. And we're going to run through the 2 scenarios here of whether someone opts in or whether they opt out. So if someone opts in for tracking, everything's as normal in terms of mobile web tracking activity. It's still limited to 8 events that can be tracked, but they're all going to be fed back in real time, and there's going to be no data delay. The problem arises when someone opts out of tracking, and this is where Facebook have created a new piece of functionality in Ads Manager called Aggregated Event Management. And it's where only one of the 8 events will be sent back based on highest priority. And we'll talk about this in just a second. And they're also going to be delaying the data, so it's not going to happen in real time at the time someone takes that event action. It's going to be a delay of 24 to 72 hours before you see that then appear in the ad account. So we'll look at the implications of this a little bit later on. So now moving on to the 8 events. So you need to identify 8 conversion events per domain, including custom conversions in your events manager. It's all done within the ad account. You don't have to make any pixel or conversion API changes on your website. And what Facebook is going to do is they're going to actually rank the events automatically for you based on what you've used in your campaigns, but you can manually change the event order. And we were literally just doing this with one of our e-commerce clients. And so for e-com, when you rank your events, it's going to be purchase number 1, and then moving backwards up the funnel for acquisition. So purchase, initiate checkout, add to cart, view content, and then lead event if you're going to be doing any list building, which we'll talk about in just a second. So if a user declines the prompt, but they execute more than one event on your site, only the highest ranked event will be recorded. So if someone, let's look at a customer journey for a typical e-com purchase. Someone visits your site, they go through page view, they look at a product page that triggers the view content action. They then add that product to cart, and they then initiate checkout. And then if they purchase, if they've opted out of tracking, you'll just see that purchase event. So we don't lose complete tracking visibility when someone opts out. It's just limited to one event. So the final thing is around this event limitation is that it's only for optimization of what you set in conversion campaigns and what you're optimizing for, and then what event data you're going to see coming back into your ad account. So you can still have all of your additional events and custom conversions for your audience building. So none of this impacts the fact that you'll still be able to build an all website traffic 180 days. But if people have opted out, there may be fewer people within that if they've triggered an action past just a page view and it's feeding back a view content. So you're going to have to get more specific with your bottom of funnel website remarketing campaigns to cover all of the events someone might take if they've opted out, so you don't lose any tracking where that event hasn't been sent back if you're not remarketing for the next event in your customer journey. And in order to even set the event prioritization, you need to verify your domain in your business manager. And that's super important. You can verify as many domains that you own, and that will then allow you to go into your events manager in your ad account and choose and set your priority events. So now moving on to attribution changes. This is the other side of the coin of this iOS 14 changes. And essentially, Facebook's going to report fewer conversions, now relying on default 7-day click attribution and 1-day view attribution. So if we're looking at this image on screen, the top row represents the previous attribution windows, which were a maximum of 28-day click and 28-day view, meaning that someone would be tracked for 28 days after they clicked on your ad, or if they viewed your ad and then later converts via another channel such as direct search or email. And then the new attribution is the bottom row, which shows the decrease in data based on the new window of just being 7-day click and 1-day view. So the key thing to note here is that although we're going to see less data reported in Ads Manager, it doesn't mean the actions such as purchases that happen after that 7-day click window won't happen. People are still going to stick to their consumer behavior, and by day 8, 9, 10, 20, 28, you just won't see it reported directly back into the ad account and attributed to Facebook and Instagram as one of your marketing channels. So let's move on to how to analyze the impact this change is going to have on your advertising by looking at historic campaign data. So what you can do at the moment is do an in-ad account analysis to actually see the change in data and what's the likely decrease when this change is fully implemented come the spring, when Apple forces all apps to show that prompt. So you want to compare the old and new attribution windows and measure the change in reported purchases and their conversion value. And so to do this, you'll need to create a custom reporting column in Ads Manager with different attribution windows, including the default 28-day view, 1-day view, and 7-day click, but more on these in just a second. And then you want to analyze the data of a 30-day period. So we typically do this month to month, and you want to do it for any month last year before the Facebook change started to started to happen in January when they introduced the 7-day new attribution windows. Because if you do it on a shorter time frame, like week to week or day to day, there's too much fluctuation in results. So first, you're going to create a custom reporting column in Ads Manager. You're going to select the custom column section. Then you're going to go down and click on Customize Columns. And then you'll end up with a view that looks like this on screen. So you're going to ensure that you've got the purchase and conversion value selected as metrics. You want to deselect all of these tick boxes here because they'll just produce additional columns that we don't need right now. And then you want to make sure in the bottom left corner under attribution, you have the following attribution windows selected because they're going to give you a column for each of these attributions. So you have include default attribution, which for campaigns that you started last year will be 28-day click, 1-day view. Then you want additional columns of 1-day view, 28-day view, and 7-day click. So once you've done that, you're going to click Save as Preset, call it Attribution Change, and then in your data, you'll have 4 purchase columns that look like this. So you have the default old attribution, which is the 28-day click, 1-day view in green. You then have the 1-day view attribution on its own in orange next to that. And then next to that, you have the 28-day view attribution in blue, and then you have the 7-day click attribution in red. And now it is time for some maths, because from these numbers, we can calculate the percentage decrease in the change in attribution based on historic data. So just quickly, you can see in this screenshot, this was taken from 1st of December to the 31st of December for a client. They spent 63,000 in ad spend, generated 5,780 default purchases. And now we're going to run through how to calculate this change. So you're going to look at the old attribution, which is taking your default column, your total, which is in this case, 5,780. And then you're going to add it to the difference between your 28-day view minus your 1-day view. And that's because we have to minus the 1-day view from the additional view attribution because it's already included in that default column that is the green one. So when we do that, we get a total of 6,456 purchases under the old attribution. And then we can calculate the new attribution of what it's going to be like with 7-day click and 1-day view. So we take the total of the red column, which is the 7-day click. So that's 4,318. We're going to add it to our 1-day view on its own, which is 476. And we have a new lower reported figure of 4,794. We can then work out the total change in purchases. So in this case, this client would see 1,662 fewer purchases just based on the attribution change, which is a 25% decrease. So for a lot of our clients, the percentage decrease varies massively based on what you're actually selling. So your price of your product, typically higher average order values means more consideration and a longer time to purchase. But it's varied for our clients across loads of different verticals here in the UK and in the US, between like 5% decrease up to 36% was one of the highest ones. Okay, so now let's move on to new advertising strategies for 2021. We've covered what the changes are. We've covered how to analyze to roughly see the forecast of what your attribution data loss is going to be like. Now let's dive into how we can really improve advertising based on adjusting our strategies because of these changes. So the first one, you want to focus on cold purchase test campaigns. So this is basically where you position product offer-based ads to cold audiences, such as lookalike and interest-based audiences, to drive immediate sales from the hyper-responsive people within those audiences who are ready to buy. So this isn't exactly a new campaign strategy as such that we've developed. You know, this is a staple campaign type for all e-commerce businesses at the agency because it's the foundation of new customer acquisition. It's finding new people that don't know your business or brand yet, but it reinforces the short-term return on ad spend, cash flow back in the business and instant profitability off that first purchase in order to drive immediate purchases within that 7-day click window. And we can take this one step further. So it's all about now reassessing and creating irresistible offers. So this is this next strategy. And for e-commerce, this is super important because for new customer acquisition, you want to present the best, most irresistible offer to your target audiences, so it becomes a no-brainer that they just can't say no to. And by creating irresistible offers, you decrease the time to purchase. So more purchases are going to fall within that 7-day click attribution window, which is the new shortened time frame. Alongside this, you may even want to consider positioning a lower price product to start with to help reduce the barrier to entry for first customer acquisition. And then you want to combine these efforts with what you're positioning, so your product positioning with your offer in your campaigns, along with incentivizing on-site actions such as one-click upsells, cross-sells, and downsells, particularly if you're on Shopify. A lot of our clients are on Shopify Plus. You can use an amazing app called Zipify that will help you install one-click pre- and post-purchase upsells, which is going to help you increase your average order value and improve your first purchase return on ad spend to increase that profitability on that first acquisition. And then the amazing thing is once you have more and more customers, you can then run existing customer retention campaigns using a customer file, custom audience. And that in itself avoids any of the tracking issues because it's a direct data upload, and you can serve ads to your existing customers to increase repeat purchase rate and improve your customer lifetime value. These are great to combine with your loyalty program and your efforts that you use LoyaltyLion for. So that's the second strategy change. And then finally, you also want to focus on list building campaigns for longer term return on ad spend and longer term business growth. So you can use educational content or product incentives to get people to opt in for your email list and then drive purchases through email nurture sequences, flash sales, and specific Facebook and Instagram remarketing campaigns. And as the opt-in to an email list is a lower barrier action, almost all of your opt-ins are going to occur within the new reduced 7-day click attribution. And so we suggest email software like Klaviyo. You know, we're not affiliated with it in any way. I feel like we should be with the amount of e-com clients of ours that we sign up to it, because it's such an amazing tool for email marketing in general. And then it has this added benefit of automatically being able to sync your customer list and segments within those lists back into customer file, custom audiences within your ad account, which will automatically update so you don't have to do it manually. And again, that avoids the pixel tracking issues from a remarketing perspective because you're doing a direct source upload into your ad account. So, you know, for example, we did this with a number of our e-com clients where we built out segments of their customer lists in terms of ones with higher average order values, with repeat purchase rates, built out a segment in Klaviyo, created the sync with their ad account, and then it would build a customer file, custom audience, which we could then use as a source audience to build lookalikes to run their cold purchase test campaigns to. So then finally, let's look at the big picture here. So we're going to look at, you know, why are these changes a good thing and how you can use them to your advantage to have your best year ever when it comes to Facebook and Instagram advertising. So the main thing here is that these changes are going to cause a lot of problems and difficulties for new, less experienced advertisers who don't know how to effectively navigate the changes from a technical perspective and also from a strategic campaign strategy perspective. And this is going to result in advertisers leaving the platform. And what happens is, with a reduction in advertisers, the demand for ad inventory is going to decrease, and therefore the cost of advertising is also going to fall. And this creates a huge opportunity for the remaining advertisers who have successfully navigated and adjusted strategies accordingly to see greater effectiveness from their campaigns with higher return on ad spend, because the CPMs of the platform this year are going to be decreasing as there is a slower adoption of Facebook and Instagram advertising. So finally, an action points list for you to take away from this little training. Verify your domain and your business manager account. You need to do that first before you can then move on to the next step of setting your event prioritization list for the 8 events you want to track and optimize for. So ecom, again, it's going to be purchases number 1, then initiate checkout, then add to cart, then view content, and then lead event as well. If you're going to be driving email opt-ins as one of the new strategies, you're going to run that on a conversion objective for the lead event action. You want to also analyze your historic data to start forecasting what your likely decrease in reported purchases is going to be based on that attribution change through that method we ran through. And then finally, you're going to want to assess the strategies we covered and start implementing new campaigns to take advantage of these changes. Because although Apple hasn't introduced the iOS 14 change just yet, Facebook is ahead of it, and you'll see in your ad account, if you launch any new campaigns, the attributions changed from 28-day click, 1-day view, which is the old default, into the 7-day click and 1-day view new attribution windows. So just before we jump into Q&A, if you've got any additional questions, want to know anything more about the agency as such, email me, charles@geckosquared.co.uk. I'll be more than happy to help, or drop me a DM on Instagram @CharlieLawrence. And if you're interested in finding out more about the agency, services we provide, all of that fun stuff, visit the agency website, which is geckosquared.co.uk. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing, and then I'm going to turn my video back on so we can jump into the Q&A. There we go. Right. Let's jump into the Q&A. And okay, here we go. So does the 8 conversion tracking work on subdomains? It does, but you essentially, even if you have your main domain and then your subdomain, your 8 events are going to be limited across both of those domains. So what you're going to want to do, if you have other territories, so sites in different countries, you're going to want to actually you're going to want to change your website architecture. And we spoke to Facebook when we were in webinars with them last month about this, from, like us.mywebsite.com to an actual changing the .com to like .fr if it's France, or oh my God, I can't think of another language. What's the Australian one? .az if it's Australia, and things like that. And they're technically then counted as separate domains. And then you can verify each of those and run your conversion events on each of those separately. So that again feeds very nicely into how you structure your ad account if you're running international advertising. So hopefully, Taylor, that answered that question. Anonymous question here. What is the main driver for them having brought in these changes? Customer privacy. Yes, basically. So Apple is all about transparency on the front end. It used to be buried away in a whole bunch of settings, and now they're basically just bringing that to the forefront with this new app transparency program, which is putting that prompt saying to users, hey, do you want Facebook to be able to track you in third-party websites within the app? They're bringing it front and center, basically. And that's the only reason these changes are happening. And from having been on webinars with Facebook, they have a strong dislike for Apple. Let's put it that way. So yeah, if Apple hadn't brought these changes in, none of this would have happened. So does this only apply to apps, or will this be an issue with websites too? So from the oh my God, can't speak today. The app prompt is only in apps. However, Safari, Chrome are all bringing in the similar changes of blocking trackers. We've seen this recently. Actually, we saw this in September, I believe, with the new Safari update. It now gives you a list of all the tracking it blocks for certain websites. So it's a similar thing's going to happen, but it's probably not going to be as severe and as open and as explicit as this prompt appearing for all of iOS users. Okay, so what happens to the data after the 7-day window? If a customer purchases after the window, will there be an easiest automatic way to make sure the purchase stays connected to the marketing activity? Okay, so this was an anonymous question. The short answer is no. You'll see it on the back end. You'll see it in your website system, whether that's Shopify, WooCommerce, whatever platform you're on. You'll see the purchase happen. But at the moment, it's not going to be directly related back to your ad account after that 7-day window when Apple forces this app change for all developers. They are going to be coming up with some forecasting and some modeling tools to try and give you better insight on them, but they're going to be modeled numbers, not hard data. And so this is where with a lot of our clients, we're looking to work with them with Google Analytics tracking, hooked up to their stores, and then also getting a lot of back-end access to their sites and to kind of do a lot of manual comparisons between data on there, seeing in their shop, and then obviously what we're seeing in the ad account. So then we've got another question here. If the events are limited to 8, will this affect the truth of the consumer behavior data? I don't quite know what that means. Megan, any insight on will this affect the truth of the customer behavior
Yeah, I've
data?
been looking
What
at
do you think
this
that
one.
means?
I'm wondering if it means like if we're not tracking for the full 28 days, if we're not getting the full kind of picture of how customers interact.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the biggest concern here is when someone opts out of that tracking. So what you're going to see is a limited data picture in your ad account where you'll see the purchase come through, but you won't see that person triggering the add to cart action or the initiate checkout action. So you might be in a scenario in a 7-day window where you have more purchases than add to cart or initiate checkout actions because it's dropping all of the actions lower down your priority list because it's only allowed to send one action when people opt out of tracking. So I think that's going to probably cause a lot of confusion for people and they'll think their pixel's set up incorrectly. So again, this all leads to this idea of it's going to get a lot more complicated and, connecting with an agency that knows what they're doing or being aware of the information that we've run through and running through the processes we've spoken about will put you at an advantage to people who don't even know what's happening or how to navigate this change effectively. Cool.
Oh, I think one just came in, did it?
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Here we go. So anonymous. If Facebook will be essentially seeing less data from its users, approximately 30% less, will this affect the general effectiveness of FB ads algo at finding new converting customers for all campaigns? That is a very good question. So if you're feeding less data in, then one can assume they're going to be slightly less effective at finding new people. However, you then want to basically counteract that with driving as many purchases within that 7-day time frame to not lose, because the main thing is from an attribution perspective, from an optimization side of things, nothing past 7 days affects optimization anyway. Like the default conversion window for optimization on the conversion objective is 7-day click, 1-day view. So if something happens on day 8 of click, that's not direct. You're seeing the result, but it's not having a direct impact on the algo for conversion because it's just monitoring everything within the 7 days to feed into the algorithm. So it's taking that like 70% and that's what's being effective. So in that case, as a whole, it might not change too much. It's just people opting out. It's more going to have an impact on remarketing audiences of actions not being included. And that's where list building comes in to being really effective and driving as many conversions in a shorter window of time. Hopefully that answered the question.
Sounded like it did. Another one. They're coming in one by one.
Okay, plus iOS customers tend to be higher value compared to Android. From our point of view, will this be a bigger impact? So one of the things you can do in your ad account is device analysis to see how much of your purchases come on iOS devices. For some clients, it's as high as like 70, 80%. So again, it doesn't matter too much where your customers are coming from a device perspective, because the attribution change is happening across the whole ad account. So even though on the back end, somewhere in the Facebook ecosystem, they might have 28-day click data for Android devices, they're not going to show it to you. They're just limiting everything now from based on the iOS changes. So it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for Android if you've got a lot of Android users, because they've basically said Apple have done this change. Now it has to impact every single advertiser. Nice.
Yeah, that sounds super frustrating for
Oh,
Android.
yeah, it would be. But the main thing is we've looked at it with all of our clients, ranging from like average order values, £30, which we consider low, up to higher, hundreds of pounds in average order value. And a lot of it is iOS devices from Facebook and Instagram. We found like an overwhelming, we haven't had one client where Android is higher in device results than iOS, basically. So, it skews more to iOS, but it's still going to affect everyone.
Makes sense. Everyone's got an Apple.
Yep, everyone's got an iPhone.
Okay, perfect. So does anyone have any more questions? Or we can wrap it up there. I'll give them a few seconds to type.
That's all right.
I think.
I feel like that might be everything.
I think that could be everything.
Okay. If you have any other questions, drop me an email, charles@geckosquared.co.uk, or find me on Instagram, drop me a DM. More than happy to help. If you need any help with anything, just let me know. And I think someone just commented saying, thank you, excellent presentation. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Yeah, hope you all enjoyed it.
Amazing. Yes, I'll just echo that. Thank you so much. That was so useful to me. And I'm sure it was to everyone that attended. We will be sending out a recording of this as well. So if you need any of that information again, it will be in your inbox. And we'll also, of course, put you in touch with Charlie if you have any questions as well.
Fantastic.
Great.
Right.
Well, thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening or rest of your day if you're in the US. And yeah, hopefully chat to you soon if you have any questions. Right.
Perfect.
Thanks
Megan. Much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.